Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Javier with The Real Javier Novoa, a channel, a platform, and a modality where we apply the principles of philosophy, spirituality, mysticism, manifestation, and law of assumption to rapid lifestyle transformation. We have a good number of new subscribers. The last two videos that we did really hit a nerve, so to speak, in a good way. They really spoke to, I believe, a need, a hunger among the population to get a handle on the basic fundamentals of manifestation, which are science-based and which are easy to understand. You see a lot of law of assumption, law of attraction coaches and channels. They will give you some disparate pieces of advice. And as the great experts on expertise talk about, making lists and getting tips and advice, while those are good for the beginner, they're not really going to help the intermediate student or the advanced student, because what the advanced student needs, and even what the intermediate student needs, are principles, and they need to know the fundamentals which underlie the different pieces of advice. And for probably a lot of law of assumption, law of attraction coaches, they don't want to give you the essential aspects, because that would take away, or it would seem to take away, a lot of their purpose, a lot of their income. We know that's not the case here at The Real Javier Novoa, because what our channel is really all about is taking these tools and helping you apply them in the specific modality of rapid lifestyle transformation. It's for a purpose, ladies and gentlemen. It's for a goal. And while when you're applying these principles, you can't do it for instrumentality, in the back of your mind and on this film roll is for instrumentality, and it is for usefulness, and it is for pragmatism. We here believe in what William James talked about. Well, not believe in it, but we certainly do identify with his purposes when he said that any philosophy can and should be measured according to its utility and according to its usefulness on the ground. Well, you're going to see as you practice and implement the principles that we teach in this channel, and as you implement the strategies, that these are going to be the most useful principles in your life. Why? Again, because they're science-based, and they're philosophical-based, and they're very fundamental. And of course, as we know just from studying all disciplines, everything that's seen has a substratum, so to speak, or has a grounding in something that's unseen. For example, every plan comes about due to an agglomeration of thoughts, which are indeed unseen. This is empirically true. And of course, every building follows after a blueprint, and that blueprint was based upon unseen imaginings and thoughts before it was devised and designed into a blueprint. So we can see this very clearly. So the further back we can pull these principles, and the higher we can go, and the more abstraction we can actually get to then apply to concrete matters, the more leverage we're going to have. If you don't understand, just keep following the videos, and you will as we progress. As I always do at the beginning of our videos, I invite you, if you find value in these materials, if you want to join a community of master manifestors who are on our way to getting free from the prison grid, which means getting free from a job and a boss within a year, getting to where you have control over your own schedule and your own space. You can work from wherever you want, whenever you want, and so therefore you can have control over the creations that you see fit to put onto the canvas of your life. Your life is not meant to be directed by others. It's definitely not meant to be directed by the prison grid. You came here to create. We're giving you the tools to get you free in a very physical and empirical way from that prison grid so that you can start operating in your sovereignty, in your freedom. That's what this channel is all about. I ask you to join us. Not only will you be joining us energetically, you will be helping us get the word out. And we thank you for that. So please do subscribe to the channel. Now today, I want to go deeper into manifestation and the process of manifestation, because in my introduction to this video, I talked about tools and techniques and so on and so forth. And these are always useful. Tips are always great. But as the great philosophers talk about, strategy is the most important. Tactics are devised and made according to your situation, but they're devised from your strategic outlook and your strategy. And I believe that if I can do a good job in imparting the strategy and whittling it down to its most basic essence to give you the most leverage, then you'll be able to figure out how to implement it in your own personal and unique situations. And in fact, that's what my coaching calls are all about. In my coaching calls, I can help you based on my years of experience in consulting, in business, and in studying these spiritual and metaphysical modalities. And we can just pack a power punch. We can formulate together all of the tactics and indeed more of the strategy, more than I have a chance to expound in these videos. But I want to give everybody, I want to give to the world the strategic outlook on this. Because each law of assumption, law of attraction teacher has a different bent. And his bent, his or her bent, or his or her emphasis changes according to the audience he or she is addressing, according to the time period. For example, Neville Goddard lived at the first half of the last century for most of his life. Also, Abraham Hicks had her milieu, and she is still, adapting her strategy and her teachings and her tactics, so to speak, to the audiences, to the times. But what is timeless? And what works no matter what time, what place, what time frame, what mental bent you're in? I want to go into that. You see, manifesting actually has 2 steps only. And we shouldn't even call these steps, and we shouldn't even separate them, because at root, as we know, and we talked about this ad infinitum in the early days of the channel, where we discussed the levels of being, where at the top of that level of being is the oneness, is the divinity, which we all are. And divinity simply separated itself in the illusion, in the game, created the illusion so that it could rediscover itself as divinity. But within this game, if you know the oneness, if you know yourself as the oneness, and you know everything else as the oneness, then you know you're separate from nothing. So that's a great strategic and tactical advantage to have in the game. It's knowing who you are, knowing that you're the one. In this knowingness, and stemming from this knowingness, we can divide this process of manifestation into 2 steps only that you can adapt and apply right now. And I'm going to show you the one technique, which is really not a technique, but the one technique that works the quickest. And in fact, it's so quick it works immediately, and you're going to see your manifestation take off. In fact, you can lay aside any other processes that you've had. Neville Goddard touched upon this. Many of the other metaphysicians touched upon this. Directly or indirectly, Eckhart Tolle really touched upon it. And I want to discuss it and expound it here today, and then show you how to use it. So, what is manifestation? Manifestation is simply bringing something that already exists in the spiritual into the physical. And of course, everything is manifestation. No matter if you have a goal and then you work hard toward it on the ground and then you achieve it, or you don't achieve a goal. Either way, it's a manifestation. Because again, you manifest according to what your beliefs are, and according to what your knowing is, according basically, as Neville Goddard talks about, what your state is. You're manifesting your state. And there are philosophical and scientific reasons for this that we are going to be making more detailed videos about, going into the reasoning behind this. Because, of course, If you know the reasoning, then you can apply this to varied situations, and you can apply it, and this is the most important thing, to your personality type and to your state in the beginning. Because what's going to work for some personality types is not going to work for other personality types. And what's going to work for you when you're in a certain state or when you're on a certain position on the emotional scale is not going to work for you when you're on another position in the emotional scale. For example, Abraham Hicks talks about in the emotional scale, the top part is love. And as Joe Dispenza said, when these people come out of these meditations, when they open their eyes, that a lot of them come out in such a state of love that they don't even want anything anymore, and they just give. They say, here, let me give this to you. They're not seeking anything because they've known themselves as the oneness. You're not going to remain in that state. But when you're in that state, visualization is not going to work for you. Why? Because visualization is going to take you back down into that physical state, and it's actually taking you down a notch. And at that moment, you already have everything that you want. And everything that you want, including your goals and aims and so on and so forth, are unfolding themselves and showing themselves to you. So visualization would be a step down. If you're in, let's say, a very low place on the emotional scale like despair, visualization's not really going to help you. It could help some people if you're intensely focused on it enough. But that's not going to help you. In fact, what it's going to do is going to take you further away from your desire. Because when you visualize what you want, when you're in a state of despair or fear, that despair or fear is going to cover your visualization. It's going to color your visualization. And it doesn't really matter what you visualize. It's the state that you are in while you're visualizing. I hope you understand me just a little bit. And when you're visualizing something non-fearful in a state of fear, you're implying that you're separated from that visualization or from that thing which you're visualizing. And of course, this can work for people who have laser focus, and sometimes we will recommend for people to visualize anyway. It's not going to work for everybody. Here's what's going to work for everybody. The 2 steps here. And you'll have to adapt this to your situation. The first step is you desire something and you have a specific idea about what you're desiring, but it doesn't have to be specific. A lot of people, especially Neville Goddard, say that you have to know exactly what it is you want in fine detail. And that's true when you're going to use the techniques of visualization. Why is that? Because you'll need to know what to visualize before you're visualizing it, and in fact, in the very practice of the visualization, you find out specifically what it is. But this isn't going to work for other desires. In fact, Neville Goddard spoke about it. He spoke about a story of a woman who had a lot of problems. She couldn't find a job. She was older. She had no money. She had no transportation, or very bad transportation. And she said, and I'm paraphrasing here, when I visualized the things that I want, it just made me nervous. It gave me anxiety. So I tried something that you'd recommended to someone else, and it was basically this statement of, isn't it wonderful? And I just kept repeating to myself, isn't it wonderful? And I fell asleep in that feeling of, isn't it wonderful? And then basically she got everything that she wanted. But it was a general feeling, so to speak. It was a general state. And those are just as valid, but you can't use the same tools. But here's where Abraham Hicks comes in and explains this. She said, remember, getting the desire more specific is something that's going to happen of its own accord, and you don't have to make it happen. And it will happen easily and effortlessly. And you can just go through your life generally. It's all about where you are in the moment and how much acceleration you want. For example, some people want to drive 30 miles an hour and just enjoy it. Other people at other times want to drive 100 miles an hour and enjoy that. You basically have to analyze what state of mind you're in. But you simply have to have an idea of what it is that you want, whether general or specific. And both of these modalities can be used. That's the first step. And that naturally happens. Just like Neville Goddard explained again when Daniel was in the lion's den. He said, of course, the person who is hungry, he wants food. The person who's in prison, he wants to be free. So that's relatively automatic. You don't have to ask, well, what is it that I want? The moment you have a negative emotion, you've already set off a rocket of desire. So you can just reach for that general feeling of well-being, or it can be a very specific goal, or what we call intention. In fact, in this channel, we teach you how to formulate specific intentions because we're business people, and that's the focus and the brunt of this channel. However, it's not always necessary. It's not always how you're going to do it. Now, the second step of this very simple process is, are you ready for this? Don't resist it. Now, that's a negative exhortation. Because oftentimes we talk about, especially in this channel, and again, this is for more specific manifesting, of getting into state. And by practice, you can get into the state of anything that you want. So, for example, get into the state of having a prosperous business. And you can do that. But again, it depends on where you are on the emotional scale. If you're in depression, it's going to be a lot harder for you to reach for that state. But here's what you can do. No matter how you feel, no matter what you're thinking or what you're feeling, because feelings and thoughts are passing states, you don't have to make that your state. All you have to do is not oppose your desire. And how can you do that? Well, there's a very easy way to do that. And Eckhart Tolle talks about it. You see, here's the hack, or the life hack, or the thing that's going to make manifestation a lot easier for you. It's going to de-stress a lot of you who think that you have to do a lot of things to manifest. And I recently had an incredible serendipitous manifestation just in the last few days. It's a business opportunity, and while I'm not going to discuss it in detail, we are going to discuss it more in other videos. But I did it by doing this. Eckhart Tolle talks about, when you finally got something that you want, what's the feeling then? It's just, I've got everything that I want. And it's just being completely present. And in fact, Neville Goddard talks about this, the feeling of relief. So you can just be completely present as the I am. And if you have a negative feeling, which is that shooting off of the desire, and then you just immediately become present and just observe your feelings and emotions and thoughts, then guess what? You're not opposing your wish. That means right now you're in the state of your wish fulfilled, and it will come to you, will manifest on the outer. But you're not asking yourself about the time frame. You're not worried about the time frame because you have what you want now. And what is it that you want now? It's just being and abiding in that one, in that I am, in that oneness, in that fullness. And all of the philosophers, all of the law of assumption, law of attraction, spiritual great teachers talk about this. And then from that feeling of oneness, from that I am and being completely in the moment, then you take whatever action is inspired to you. You do what Bashar says, and you follow your highest excitement. When you start to get bored, then bring yourself back up to contentment, and then follow your highest excitement. That may be visualizing it. That may be doing something to quote-unquote work towards it, which is really working out of it. It's whatever feels good in the moment. This is where your emotional scale serves you. But this is the simplest way to manifest. And it can actually be just summarized in one statement. I am. I am. And just remain present in the I am, and everything that you want will flow to you at the perfect time, and you're going to have a blast doing it. These are the 2 steps to manifestation. That's it. Shoot off the desire, which happens automatically, and then just abide in the I am. That is the secret. It stems from metaphysics. It stems from science. And we're going to be talking about this more, and we're going to be implementing it to the specific modality of being free from the prison grid, being free from a job and a boss. So Email me for coaching calls. Please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. This is Javier with The Real Javier Novoa, and I'll see you very soon. Have a great night.